good to go. There we go. Let me just send this out. Bear with me. I know a lot of people are watching the Tyson fights. I just know, what's his name, Nate Robinson got knocked out. I assume that's on pay-per-view. I don't know why people would pay for this, but whatever. Not my money. Let me see here. Oh, see if I can tweet this out a couple more spots. If I can't, whatever. Let's copy that. Copy that. Got some people join. Oh, we got. I don't know if I did that right. Just Fleet thing on Twitter. You can share your like Instagram stories. I don't know if I did that right. Tried to share it there. Probably failed. Someone in the chat, let me know what if is the Tyson thing on pay-per-view. If not, I'd probably tune in. I'll just cut this short. Just kidding. Where else was I going to send this? Bear with me. Just a couple more. Get this from like 15 people watching to 20. Just make it crazy tonight. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Send it on the Slack. And someone keep me updated if Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., if they're fighting, if something happens there. Because I didn't even realize something was going on. Then Nate Robinson got knocked out and Twitter went crazy and all the memes were already up. I was like, oh, God bless Twitter. They'll keep you apprised. I just send it one more spot. Oh, yeah. So let's get into the news today, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some. So someone help me out. If there's something important that was going on, we'll try to just kind of cut through it real quickly before we jump into some of the games from a DFS or fantasy perspective. But if you haven't tuned in before, my name's Clay Hodges. You can follow me on Twitter at NotDuckHodges, goingfor2.com. This is War Room After Dark, I think episode 10, which is funny because we're in week 12. Yeah, I've been lazy and missed a couple weeks. I apologize. But here this week, I think it's a good week. Nate got folded. Yes, he did. Let me know what happens if Tyson gets on there. And is it on pay-per-view? I assume it is, Jason. Let me know. Let's go into some of the news today. I think the biggest news is that the Denver Broncos don't have any QBs because of COVID. I think it was their third string. I don't even remember now. I apologize. One was positive, and then the other three were just around him. So they have to be not play since they were in high contact. And I've seen some people complain. I didn't read it, but apparently there's a memo. There's a difference between this and what the Ravens are going through, and they're well aware. It sounds like the Broncos got themselves into it themselves. But like I said, I saw the memo. I think Schefter posted it, and why it differentiated between, because I know some people are like, this isn't fair. The Ravens got pushed back. Why can't you just push back the Broncos a couple days? Well, it sounds like the Broncos violated protocol, and now they have to line the shit they made. Driscoll's the one. Yep. Thanks, Mike. But that's the big one. If you're playing DFS or fantasy and you have any of the Broncos people, I would just sit them. It was already a bad matchup. They're going to run the ball a ton, but I still think like Melvin Gordon probably runs. He probably gets 20 carries for 40 yards. Maybe he falls in the end zone, but I don't think it's worth the risk. I don't know what's going to happen there. And I know a lot of people are talking about playing the Saints defense. Fantasy, like redraft, yeah, play them. If you have them or if you picked them up, it's a safe floor. For DFS, their Ari Price is one of the most expensive ones, I think at $3,800. And with that, it's not the floor's there. I would play him in cash. I'm not gonna sit here and bash the Saints defense or playing them. I made a statement on Twitter probably a couple hours ago, and then next thing I know, like all these people are being tagged in it, and it got into a pretty fun debate that devolved into someone saying that the Saints defense isn't even great. And it just depends on what your definition of great is. I think they're really, really good. So I would agree they're not great, but they're top like 6, 7, but maybe they're not top 3. So some guy saying that they're not great. Maybe you're right. So that's what we're getting to, Mike. 3,800. There's a lot of good plays, and everyone's going to be playing the Saints defense now. Like I said, I get it for cash. For tournaments, I'm still going to play some of them. If it was a single entry, I wouldn't, though. I like the Giants a little bit better at 3,200, and the Browns at 3,100. And I might have flip-flopped them there. Apologies. But I think they're just in good spots. And what you got to keep in mind is that with defense special teams, we talked about this before, I think, what we're looking for is a lot of drop back passes because I want a defense that's going to have an opportunity for sacks, which is points, interceptions, which are points, fumbles, which are points, which are increased when you're hitting the quarterback than running back. So a lot of bad things can happen when the quarterback's stepping or going back in the pocket, or a lot of good things can happen for the defense. So, even though Burrow was looking good, and I know he got hurt, but he was looking good the first like 10 games of the year. He was throwing the ball like 50 times a game, and it was just, and their offensive line was horrible. He was taking a lot of hits. It made a lot of sense just to stack them up because the type of opportunity you're getting there, just with those sacks, potential sacks, interceptions, that's much greater. So I think the Saints will probably score decently. If you're telling, they might allow like 10 points, but you can't predict it. And if the Broncos are just going to run it 65, 70% of the time, in this quarterback, he might make mistakes. He might not. He might just throw it in the ground or miss everybody, throw it over everybody out of bounds. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I think a lot of people are just saying the Broncos won't score more than 10 points. You play the Saints defense. Well, maybe, but even if you ever tell me like the Broncos would only score like 10 points, or I could play any team, the defense, any team, and the opposing team was going to throw the ball 50 times, I'll just take that potential ceiling of them throwing the ball 50 times because there's just so much greater opportunity. Yeah, the Saints might get 10 points, but there's going to be a defense out there that scores like 15 to 20. And maybe it's not the Giants or the Browns, which are my favorites. It could be any of them, but I think the Saints are going to get a little out of control on the defense, and I might eat my words. But like I said, they're finding cash. I think they're going to be okay. They'll be a good defense, but I don't think they're going to be the slate breaking. Now, if this Hinton guy comes in and throws the pick six, yeah, it could happen. So all depends about your risk tolerance. But there's so much, I think, chalk on this slate. This is going to be one of the clear ones. This at least will let me differentiate a little bit because I do like some of the more obvious ones. But that's my thoughts on Saints D. Not that I don't think they're really good. I just think if the Broncos just run and go into a shell and just kind of run this game and try to get out of there, because I don't even know how they feel. I saw Noah Fant tweeted like it was BS, but to me, like, I want to know like what the coaches think, because they could be mad too and just say, you know what, we're not forfeiting, but the best way to beat the Saints is keep the ball out of Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara's hand. And so let's just run the ball, run it some more, and slow this game down. And if they lose 10-7, they still look good, and maybe they don't do anything. But going on too much about that. That's my stance on Saints D. Or some other news today. Jonathan Taylor out with COVID, so that raises Naheem Hines and Jordan Wilkins for the Colts. I didn't like this running, the three-headed running attack, just because you couldn't peg who it was. It's always hot hand. Now I'm going to have both of them, to be honest, in tournaments. Hines and Hines, not Himes, Hines and Wilkins. I think I like Hines more for cash. It's just because he can catch. It's just I think you're throwing darts. I think a lot of people are saying Hines is the best play. It's easy. He's at 4,600. Wilkins is at the minimum at 4,000. I think it's a toss-up. I don't know if I'm ballsy enough to put Wilkins in because we have some other chalk at that same price, like in a single entry tournament. That's the type of stuff that'll win you the millionaire maker or something like that. So it's something I'm playing with. It could be good leverage off of a Brian Hill, for example. I think James White's around there too. There's some decent plays. So there's a lot of value, which we'll talk about before we get into some specific games. So that's Jonathan Taylor. I'm trying to think. There's probably some other stuff. Let me check real quick. So let me know if I missed something obvious. I know there's a lot of obvious plays. I think. Oh, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's playing, most likely playing. It looks like Tua is 99. He's doubtful, so it's very likely he's not playing. So Ryan Fitzpatrick is in against the Jets, and we know the Jets suck. If you've been overthinking it, thinking that there's going to be blowouts and all that, I mean, one, if there's a blowout, that means points are being scored. Someone's getting there. It's most likely going to be Fitzmagic. And then, I mean, the likelihood of you trying to project a blowout's just crazy. It's just so hard to predict, and you don't know what the Broncos will do there. So, to me, I think Fitzpatrick. I like a lot of the expensive quarterbacks. He might be my favorite cheap one. I could see him on the millionaire maker too. I think he'll be decently popular because the news came out like this afternoon, so people have time to pivot, especially with like the Saints news. So everyone's going back and probably just starting from scratch. But I think Fitz and Saints, you'll probably see that in like the chalkiest lineups. But for cash, by all means, put them in there. How do I feel about Danny Dimes? Okay, so and on Brian Hill. Thanks, Jason. So yeah, love Fitz obviously. Teddy, not so much. I'll just be short and sweet with that one. Danny is in my. He was in my pool. I usually like to play 4 quarterbacks on a 20 max slate. So I do 5 apiece. He's probably on the outside looking in. Now it's a toss up between him and Carr, to be honest, but he was in there, but until the Fitzpatrick news, because I just think Fitzpatrick could do as one of his 4 touchdown games. And I saw, heard, whatever. There was a stat that I think Danny Dimes only has 8 touchdown passes in 10 games. So for me to all of a sudden project now he's going to have 3 or 4, this year it's against me, and you're throwing money away. But last year, I think he had 3 or 4 games worth 30-plus points, so the upside's there. It's just was last year a fluke because he was a rookie and no one had tape on him, and now he's settling as this horrible quarterback. I don't know, but I'd probably rather have Carr in the higher scoring. Plus, Giants-Bengals. The Bengals are starting Finley, I believe. No, Brandon Allen, which I bet the Broncos wish they had right now. This game, I think it's the lowest projected total on the slate. The Giants could get up by 14 and then just play defense and slow it down, and Wayne Gallman's in a good spot. So they might not even need Danny Dimes. They're unfortunately, sadly, in the race for the NFC East, and they win this. I think they're tied, and I don't know who has a tiebreaker between them and Washington, but they could just cruise to victory here. So I think Danny has some risk unless you think somehow the Bengals will produce some points here. Let me see if there's any other news. I'll get to Brian Hill. Well, I'll get to him. I love Brian Hill. I would actually play him in 12-team redraft leagues if you have it. Unless I'm missing something, he should get 20 touches. They run the ball in the red zone. I mean, Gurley has like 9 or something touchdowns this year, so Brian Hill's already looked better. Now he's going to get the lead back to us. I don't think he carries it like 90% of the time, but if he gets like the Todd Gurley 65-70% plus the goal line work, I'm all in. It's 4,000. It's the only thing is mind games. We go into this. You don't have as enough roster spots for all these guys. So at top you got Dalvin. I like Derrick Henry. I'm just naming the ones I kind of like. Chubb. And then on the other end, you got Hines, Jordan Wilkins, Hill. I mean, you can only play 3, so you're already out. So I don't know. Good luck figuring that out. That's going to be the key to the tournaments. But yeah, Brian Hill's in a great spot. Oh, thanks. I love this headset. Austin Eckler's in. That's some kind of news. I don't. I've heard varying reports whether he'll get the full load. I would think so. He's in the best scoring environment, so I think I'm on Eckler for tournaments. That's the only other news, I guess. Depends who else is active for that, but or if there's reports, Schefter will drop a bomb at midnight whether he's whether he's going to be limited or all. But I think Eckler's a great GPP. So I just had 3 up top. I think everyone will go to 3 down low. Everyone will go to maybe the keys to these tournaments are just hitting the middle for the running backs. And Eckler, I don't know who else is there in the middle. Hunt, maybe James Robinson. So maybe maybe that's what you do. But I think that's just kind of it for the Saturday news. And so let's talk a little bit about some of my favorite games. If you're new listener, welcome, watcher, whatever. I usually just go through like a handful of games, like 5 or 6, and I really just kind of try to script it out, like how I think it's going to play out, and that like the most likely scenario, and then like a kind of an alternative. Most likely is usually following Vegas, unless I just have a strong lean that Vegas has it wrong, or if the Vegas line is shifted because all the quarterbacks have COVID, then you can shift there. But that's how I really try to build for tournaments, because instead of trying to get 9 individual spots right, I try to think of getting a couple game environments, and then if you get all the pieces around it, instead of having to hit 9 right plays, you're hitting 5 plays plus a game if you stack it right. So that's kind of how I try to think of the tournaments and get on there. And I think this is a really good week. I'm pretty confident, which is scary, in kind of some of my plays, like a cash game play. And then for tournaments, I'm just going to take, a couple of them and then just stack with some of these other teams and just hope where the chips fall. But these are usually the weeks where it makes them a decent amount of money, whether it's $1 or 1 million. We'll find out tomorrow. Stay tuned. If it's $1 million, I'll do another stream tomorrow, and I'll be much more drunk, and it'll be a lot more fun. But we'll see if we get there. But for this one, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 highlighted, and I think I talked about a couple of them a little bit. But before we get into those, I'll talk a little bit about, like I just said, like the cash build. I think it's pretty obvious. It builds itself this week, so I think that's why I'm fairly confident I'll be making money, because you can just be chalky and probably hit pretty well. But you will most definitely see the chalk here. Running back will be like Dalvin Cook, Brian Hill, maybe Himes in the flex, and then the 3 wide receivers probably Jefferson. You got some of the cheap guys like Gabe Davis, Isabella, the Jaguars, Keelan Cole, LaVisca. I think I'm missing someone down there cheap as well. And then tight end, you can either go like Kelsey all the way down to you can have Waller, or you can go all the way down like Kyle Rudolph, depending on what you're doing. Like for cash, I don't think I'd play Cook, Jefferson, and Rudolph, but maybe you play the 2 pass catchers, or you play 2. I mean, I think Jefferson and Rudolph are just too cheap, so they make sense to play. But I think that's kind of the chalk build. And then quarterback, I don't know what that leaves you just off the top of my head, but that probably leaves you enough to do a Kyler, Mahomes, or a Josh Allen. But I think the big games, I think everyone will be on this Vikings game. Let's start there. Carolina Vikings, and someone mentioned am I on Teddy B this week? I'm not. And I'm not on Mike Davis. I think this is his last game, but he just really hasn't been doing that well since like week 6. He's just he got there on name for having 2 or 3 huge games, and then now he's just kind of been so. I think he's just kind of wearing out. He's not Christian McCaffrey. Everyone thought he was called him like 90% Christian. He's not that. So this is his final game, but I'm not on him. But I do like Robbie, DJ, Samuel. It's just hard to tell which one. And then on the other one, we just talked about it. I think the chalk would be for chalk or tournaments. We'd be Cook, bring it back with like DJ Moore or something. So try to think of this game. What else can you do? Jefferson will still be chalky. Rudolph would still be chalky, but I think Robbie would probably be the least owned, I guess. But who knows? So if you're going to hit this game hard, I'm not on Cousins either, even though I like a couple of his pass catchers. This has like a healthy over-under of like round 50. I think got bet up to 51 with Bridgewater most likely playing. It's just throwing a dart at those receivers, and Samuels just keeps paying off, but I've been avoiding them, and I'm going to be too stubborn. I'll probably avoid him, but I'll have Robbie and DJ and just hope the right combination hits. The game of the week, though, would be Chargers at Bills, in my opinion. I have it at 54, but this is old when I typed in this data, so it's probably up to 56 now. It should be the highest one, right there with the Raiders Falcons. But this is the one where I'll probably have a piece or pieces in most every tournament lineup I build, just because I don't see much path for this to really hit too much under. I can't see it being like a 20-14 battle. It could be like 48 points or something like that, and that would be, in my opinion, if the Chargers get up, they're much more likely to deflate the ball because they can actually run it, whereas the Bills, they can't run it to save their lives. They already pass on first down every fucking play anyway. If you've been watching their games, which I don't know why I watch them, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's the Bills, but they're actually kind of fun. But they just pass it all the time. It's actually great. So Josh Allen, I think it's 7,600. It's one of my, probably my cash play right now. Definitely love him. People will be playing Diggs, playing Beasley, playing Gabe Davis. I think I didn't mention him before. That's one of the cheap wide receivers. Gabe Davis, you could bring him where you ignore the running back, so that's easy. Bring it back. Now with Chargers, you have Herbert, Eckler, which you can play with the pass catchers because that's where we want them anyway. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. So like 4 and 5, so like 9 toys to play with in each. Trying to get in your lineups. To me, and this is trying to put on your galaxy brain, because each of these defenses have good, a couple of good skill position players. They both have shutdown corners. The Bills have White, and the Chargers have Chris Harris. Casey Hayward's out this week, so that's the rub. So Casey Hayward, who usually plays the slot, he played a little bit on the outside for the Broncos last year, but he's shut down. But he's really good in the slot. So Casey Hayward, to me, would shut down Cole Beasley. So I'm just going to take out Cole Beasley. And then on the other side, Tre'Davious, I know he doesn't travel in the slot very much. I don't think they're going to ask him to do that. Mike Williams is enough of a threat on the outside. Put White on Mike Williams, so that frees up Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. So I've eliminated 2. Now I have 7 I really like there. But that's me putting on the galaxy brain hat and trying to think. Cole Beasley's just been doing great. And to be honest, I've never played him this year or even last year. I don't think, and so he just keeps doing it. So I could be wrong on what happens there. So maybe if everyone's saying the same thing, you can think about that. And maybe Tre'Davious White gets in on Keenan. I still think Keenan can get there, but he's $8,000, so he's pretty expensive. He has to keep being his dominant self. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this one. But I think with all the value, Gabe Davis was mentioned as one of them here. I mean, you can fit these guys in. So if you want to do a Josh Allen, Diggs, Keenan, it can work. It can work very easily. Putting in Gabe Davis, so you can do that. The other like high 50s game is the Raiders at the Falcons. And this one to me carries more risk, but it's indoors, and I looked at the weather. I don't think we have any weather concerns, but look in the morning. But what I saw, there's nothing to really worry about that will sway me or make decisions for me. But the Raiders, they did at the early of the week have the highest over-under. I think there's more risk here than the Chargers Bills because I still don't trust Derek Carr. He's played great this year, so that might be me being foolish. And I had mentioned early on in this show, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks. He's going to probably be my top 4 or 5, so I might play him. So don't get me wrong, but I do think there's more risk here. So where I just said, like with the Chargers, Bills, I'd be playing them in almost every lineup. Raiders, Falcons, I'll have scenarios in my head where this game doesn't get there and it hits under, or just one team gets there. But both teams are certainly viable. We already touched on Hill for the Falcons. He's great. I think we have to monitor the Julio Jones injury news. I think he's okay. He's questionable, but I think he'll play. But I like Calvin Ridley either way. And if Julio's out, it might open up some more value, which no one will be on because we've already had it set, like all the other receivers I've mentioned. So Alameda Zacchaeus or whatever, maybe he makes sense as a sneaky play, something you can think about there. And then for the Raiders, the best way to attack is through the air. So I'm hoping for a back and forth, or the Falcons are prone to getting up and then just blowing the lead. So letting the team back in. So Carr to Waller, I think is going to be pretty chalky. You'll see that in a lot of lineups. Can't blame you. Carr to Aguilar makes sense. But I think one of the biggest tournament builds, you'd probably see like a Carr to Aguilar or Waller or both, and then bring it back with Hill, maybe even Ridley, something like that. So that one's going to be fairly popular, and I can see some paths for it to fail. So I might be a little lighter on that than the field, but something I certainly like. We kind of answered this one already, but Dolphins at Jets with Fitzpatrick being back in. I'm in a great. I'm excited about this. I think this comes a very good spot, especially because people have fallen in love with a bunch of the games we've already talked about. I was thinking Parker and Jakeem Grant were going to be sneaky plays. They probably won't be as much now, but I think they're much more viable, especially Grant. He was very thin. He's another one of the cheap wide receivers. But Parker makes a lot of sense. And then stacking him up with Fitzpatrick. Probably even play some Gesicki now just because I think the Dolphins are going to score 28 points here. And I don't think their running backs, I know Ahmed's out. Schefter tweeted Gaskin was out. I haven't seen that anywhere else. I hope he is because I just don't want them being tempted to throw the ball. Then all they'd have was Patrick Laird and Matt Breida. I'll take the loss of Matt Breida. I thought he was going to do great this year. He hasn't done shit. But that's that. So I think the Dolphins are just going to continue to air this out. Obviously, their defense is in a good spot too, but with Fitz trying to what I think. Encourage a more aggressive attack, whereas with Tua it might be a little bit more conservative. I think Fitzpatrick can push the envelope, create the scoring environments where it's a little bit faster pace. And with Sam Darnold on the other side for the Jets, I think the best way he likes to attack is through the slot, which is Jameson Crowder. So not a sexy name ever, but someone you can click on and maybe he gets 10 catches. If he falls in the end zone, he pays off his salary. So I think Crowder is kind of like the bring back or someone you can play in their sneaky tournament to add on. I think he can be peppered with targets here. A lot of people have been talking about Mims or Brashard Perryman, but to me, I think Crowder is the best play. Let's see here. 3 more. If you have any questions, whether it's fantasy redraft, DFS, even some dynasty, because in a couple of my dynasty leagues, I started trading people off recently. Fire sale didn't work out for me, but let's talk about the Giants and the Bengals as those questions come in. I think the Giants are about a touchdown favorite, maybe 6 points. This one's risky. We already touched a little bit about Gallman and the defense. That's probably a really good stack. The Bengals, I still think are going to throw the ball a lot, which, like I said, you want to play defenses against teams throwing the ball. I don't think they're going to start handing it off. Especially, sounds like only Samaje Perine will be playing. I know they'll have their practice squad or backup in, but Perine might be the starter. He can't catch it out of the backfield, so if he runs into brick walls early, they're just going to be airing it out. And what's his name? Not it's Allen. Is it Brandon Allen? Yeah, Brandon Allen. He doesn't stand a chance. So I think the Giants are a great defense there. If you think this game could open up, which I'm not sure it can, this is why Danny Dimes is on the outside for me. Their passing game's in a good spot too, and so Slayton or Shepard's gotten like 6 targets a game for like the last 10 games or something. So he's safety. Ingram's even that's a good spot. It's just I just don't know. I think this is the low scoring environment. So you're really betting on something unraveling here, and I just don't know what on the Bengals side can do it unless it's like a defensive score or something like that. Anything could happen, but if you want to go there, Danny Dimes, either bring it back or just ask yourself, how is Danny Dimes going to be asked to throw the ball 35 times? What's going to happen? Because they're not the team that just keeps the foot on the pedal and goes for it. Titans at Colts, we've already talked about a little bit about Hines and Wilkins. Won't go there, and I'm not going to touch anyone else. I did like Pittman a little bit, but this news came out, and I'll just ride those running backs because the Titans suck on defense. They are very mediocre, and they just lost their best linebacker. I think it's Jayon Brown for the year, so they're going to get worse. I think Clowney's still out, so I'm not going to bury my head in the sand on this news. I think both are good spots. The only question is trying to figure out which one is going to be the one that scores and get a lot of the work. It seems like everyone's on Hines, like I said. But to me, my favorite play on this slate so far, and I don't think I can get off. I'm locked in, which is unfortunate, is going to be Derrick Henry. The reason is, one, you never need a reason not to play Derrick Henry. He's always viable to break off for 200 yards and multiple touchdowns. Matchups don't matter. But two, we're entering the last quarter of the season. If you paid attention in 2018, 2019, the Derrick Henry's just gone off. He's a second half running back, whether it's in the actual game, his stats are better, or in the season, he just gets better. And a lot of people perceive the Colts to have a really good defense, but they're missing like 3 or 4 people off the defensive line, including Buckner. I think maybe even a linebacker. So this defense, which is top 5, which I don't really buy into anyway, now I think they're highly exposed. And so to me, Derrick Henry's just he ran for he had 19 carries for 108 yards or something 2 weeks ago when they played. I think he's just going to improve on that. So he's my favorite GPP play because I think everyone will go to Dalvin Cook and everyone will go to Nick Chubb right next to him there. So that would be kind of my shift right now, or not right now. I've been locked on to him for 2 days. I don't think I'm gonna budge off of that, even though you could play like 3 of the cheap running backs. All right, let's get into the last game here, and then if there are any questions, I'll scroll through and answer it. The last game I wanted to touch on is the Chiefs at the Bucks. For a healthy total 55 points. I'm pretty high on this game, especially from the Chiefs side. The Bucks have had a really good defense. They've started to kind of regress towards the mean in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but what stayed strong is the run defense, and we know we don't need an excuse for the Chiefs to start airing it out. So Mahomes is in a great spot. They're missing their fastest running back or cornerback. The Buccaneers are in Albert Dean. I think that's his name. So now Tyreek Hill still has to play a good corner in Carlton Davis, but he can beat him. And then Kelsey's in like one of the best spots. So it makes too much sense. So Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, that's a great stack. The only issue is how do you bring it back? You can also play Sammy Watkins, by the way, but how do you bring it back for the Bucks? I don't trust the running back by committees because if one drops the ball or fumbles, they're benched. Bruce Arians runs a tight ship there, and he benched Fournette last week, who would have been my favorite, but he dropped 3 balls, and they just said, no, we don't care. And that leaves the passing attack. I'm not going to touch the tight ends. Honey Badger's good against the tight ends anyway. But then we have 3 viable wide receivers, and to me, you got to just pick one and just kind of roll with it and just hope it's right. To me, right now, I'm leaning Antonio Brown. They brought him in. He's been peppered with targets. It's tough. They're all very talented. They're like, I don't want to say like Antonio Brown's more talented just because he's been gone for a year. In theory, he is, but they're all so good. It just takes one. Evans would probably be my least favorite, but anyone could do it. So take your shots on a couple. But like I said, I think Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, with one of those pass catchers is going to be a GPP winner, something along those lines. So keep that in mind. So let's go back through. I started ignoring the chat for just a little bit, see what questions I missed. How do I feel about Danny? Oh, answer that one. Standard League, Jonnu Smith or Evan Ingram, also Taysom Hill or Ryan Fitzpatrick. Sean, if you're still tuned in, sorry it took me a while to get to the question. I would say Standard League, it would be Evan Ingram and then Ryan Fitzpatrick. Taysom Hill, and I don't know if it's 10 or 12 teams, but Taysom, I'm not a believer in Taysom, but now he's in probably the lowest scoring game of the week And if the Saints get up 10-0 on the Broncos have no hope of catching them. So then they just run the ball and run the ball some more. Taysom runs the ball, but I just don't see Taysom getting there this week. So yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, they could hang 28 on the Jets before they call off the dogs or anything like that. So that would be my lean. Let's see. Are there any other questions? The guy that loved my headset. No, you're being sarcastic, Tom. Whatever. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for tuning in. There are no other questions here. See if there's anything else on these games. No, I don't think so. But like I said, yeah, you scroll back like 20 minutes. That was like I talked about the cash build. I think for GPPs, it's fine to play 3 or 4 of them and then just build like those game environments around them. So I'm gonna most definitely have like a Josh Allen to Stefon Diggs to Keenan Allen, and then also have like Hill, Naheem Himes, Andy Isabella, something like that, something cheap. Just roll with it. You can afford everything. You play Rudolph and have all the money in the world. So this is one of those weeks where I'm never going to start clicking names or looking at construction and be like, oh, I'm not going to be able to afford kind of what I'm thinking here. No matter what I click, even the Mahomes, Kelsey, and Hill, you can fit stuff in that I don't that I can stomach. So cautiously optimistic. We'll see. Like I said, party tomorrow night when I hit the $1 million. Got the great lineup. Got to make a few tweaks from the news today, but it's there. I got it. But once again, thanks for tuning in tonight. This is War Room After Dark, goingfor2.com. Give me a follow on Twitter at notduckhodges.com. And I will see you all tomorrow for the $1 million celebration. If one of y'all wins, make sure to shout me out. We can still